In the year 476 CE, a teenage barbarian king named Odoacer walked into the most powerful throne room in the Western world, looked the last Roman emperor straight in the eye, and with a single decree, ended over 1,000 years of Roman dominance forever. But what led to this shocking moment was not a sudden collapse, but a slow-motion catastrophe that had been building for centuries. And the warning signs were everywhere if you knew where to look. The Roman Empire, which at its peak controlled territory from Britain to the deserts of North Africa, from Spain to the borders of Persia, encompassing over 5 million square kilometers and 65 million people, did not fall in a day, but rather unraveled through a perfect storm of political chaos, economic devastation, military pressures, and social transformation that would reshape the entire Western world. Picture this: by the 3rd century, the empire was so unstable that it experienced what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. A 50-year period during which 50 different emperors claimed the throne, with most meeting violent deaths within months or even weeks of taking power, creating a government so dysfunctional that entire regions began operating independently, printing their own coins and raising their own armies. The economic situation became so dire that Roman currency lost 98% of its value due to constant debasement, as emperors desperately added cheaper metals to silver coins to fund their wars, causing hyperinflation that made a loaf of bread cost more than a soldier earned in a month, while trade networks that had connected the Mediterranean world for centuries began to collapse as banditry and warfare made commerce impossibly dangerous. Meanwhile, Germanic tribes were not simply invading, but were being pushed westward by an even more terrifying force: the Huns under Attila, creating a massive domino effect of displaced peoples who had nowhere to go except into Roman territory. And here is where it gets fascinating, because Rome initially tried to solve this problem by recruiting these same barbarians into their armies. A strategy that seemed brilliant until these foreign soldiers began to realize they were stronger than the empire they served. The Visigoths sacked Rome in 410, the Vandals pillaged it again in 455, and each time the Eternal City fell, the psychological impact rippled across the empire like earthquake aftershocks, shattering the belief that Rome was truly eternal and revealing the government as weak, corrupt, and powerless to protect its own citizens. But here is what most people miss about the fall. It was not just about external invasions or internal corruption. It was about a fundamental transformation of identity itself as Christianity spread throughout the empire, changing how people viewed citizenship, loyalty, and even the concept of earthly power. While simultaneously the old Roman values of civic duty and military service were being abandoned by a population that had grown wealthy and complacent during centuries of peace. Drop a comment below and tell me which factor you think was most crucial in Rome's downfall, because historians still debate this question today, and your perspective might surprise you once you dig deeper into the evidence. The administrative burden of governing such a vast territory became impossible when communication took months. Tax collection required armies of bureaucrats who often kept the money for themselves. And local governors began acting like independent kings, creating a situation where the emperor in Rome had less real power than dozens of regional strongmen scattered across 3 continents. The division of the empire into western and eastern halves in 285 CE under Diocletian was supposed to solve these problems by making administration more manageable. But instead it created 2 rival power centers that often fought each other more fiercely than they fought external enemies, weakening both halves and making coordinated responses to threats nearly impossible. The Western Empire became increasingly dependent on barbarian foederati, foreign allies who fought for Rome in exchange for land and payment. But these arrangements gradually evolved into something more like protection rackets, where barbarian leaders demanded more territory, more gold, and more autonomy until they were essentially independent kingdoms within the empire. If you want to dive deeper into these incredible historical turning points that changed everything, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we are just getting started on exploring the moments when entire civilizations hung in the balance and single decisions altered the course of human history forever. The final blow came not from a massive invasion or dramatic battle, but from simple mathematics. The Western Empire could no longer afford to pay its soldiers, maintain its infrastructure, or defend its borders. And when young Romulus Augustulus was deposed by Odoacer in 476, it was less a conquest than a foreclosure, the natural end of a state that had been bankrupt in every sense of the word for generations, marking the end of the ancient world and the beginning of what we now call the medieval period, though for the people living through it. This was not a neat historical transition, but a terrifying collapse of everything they had known as normal, leaving behind ruins that would inspire and haunt Europe for the next 1,000 years.